Well, good morning, everybody. This morning I would like to talk a bit about church bells, church bell ringing in the towers and stuff. Now, as you can see here, there's a scale model. This is a scale model that we hold in St Mary's Belfry, which is an ideal opportunity to show you how the bells are made and stuff. As you can see, the bell is bolted onto a wooden headstock here, and on the side is a wheel. I'll explain all that at some stage. We've got a groove in the wheel which takes the rope. We've got the stay there, which is a safety feature, and the slider here, which is all part of it. Now it's all set on a frame, and in St Mary's Church and all the towers is a great big frame that covers the whole floor. Some are timber. They're all timber initially, but nowadays it's all steel work. At the moment, the bell is down. This bell is down, and after ringing, most towers let the bells down. But to ring properly, we have to pull it up, which is you pull up. It's so much at a time. You can never pull the bell straight up because they're so heavy. But a little bit at a time, until eventually it is up like so. It is up like so. And now we need to pull off. The ringer's got the rope in both hands and the sally here. He pulls it off and the bell goes right round like a full circle. Okay, now he pulls it. He's got the ropes end there, and he pulls. Can you see the ringing chamber below where it is there? So the ringing chamber is down here. You can see the floor of my bottom of my hand, and he pulls it off again, and he's back in the same position. And that is roughly it's. I forgot to tell you, this is a belfry up here where the bells are, and this is a ringing chamber down here where the bell ringers stand, you know. And in some bells it's quite loud, you know, in some towers. But that's roughly how that's roughly how a bell works. Like I say, they're hung on a wheel. A lot of people don't know that. But okay, well, having been a bell ringer for 65 years, it amazes me the number of people that do not know but very little about how bells are made and how they're rung or hung. Firstly, the Latin word for bell is campana, So for bell ringing, it is campanology. Subsequently, for bell ringer, we have the word campanologist. Secondly, the bell is a musical instrument, giving strong, pure notes and used for many purposes, not only for in the church towers, but also in clock towers, schools, sporting events, and handbells. Now, handbells can be entered into two categories. Firstly, we have handbell ringing teams who regularly assemble, playing popular music and performing at local venues and events, entertaining the public. The second category is a bit more professional. It's conventional bell ringers ringing the changes much the same way as the bell ringers do in the towers. The first people who invented the bell were the Chinese, approximately 2,000 years before Christ, casting them similar as it is done today. Bell ringing is very English form and a very English art form, and other countries in the world have adopted the English style of ringing. Initially, all bells were hung on spindles with an extended arm together with a rope and simply just chimed to give the desired effect. There are many countries in the world that have been introduced to bell ringing: Canada, Australia, New Zealand, the USA, and at some stage, all their towers have been installed with rings of 6, 8, and 10 bells, and possibly more. Most probably cast, constructed, exported, and installed from English bell founders and bell hangers from England. Recently, in 2017, a new peal of bells have been installed in a tower in Yip in Belgium. At some stage in history, someone came up with the idea of fitting a wooden headstock on the bell, then affixing a quarter wheel, which gave a greater arc of movement. Then a half wheel was fitted, and we finally ended up with a full wheel, which gives a complete swing of 360 degrees. This gives the bell ringer greater control of the bell with longer time between strikes of the clapper, and subsequently the opportunity to ring a more musical pattern and a more enjoyable occupation. To cast a bell, two modes are made. One is called the core and the other one is called the cope. And I've got some sort of construction here. This is roughly, we've got the outer one and then we've got the inner one, if you can see that one moving inside. The core is built of brick. That's the inner one. Its core is built of brick on a metal base and is covered with a mixture of sand, clay, straw, horse manure, and animal hair, preferably from a goat. This is what I was told anyway, from people with the outer shape. The outer shape is built around a metal cope, and the profiles of both modes are shaped using a tool called a strickle. Both modes are allowed to dry in an oven and coated with graphite to give a good finish. Now at this stage, and perhaps many of you don't know, but most every bell has got an inscription on them or a decoration of some sort. The inscription may read, the bell foundry itself, and these inscriptions are inscribed by pressing letters and patterns into the inside of the outer mode, which when cast leave raised impressions which may spell out the date the bells were cast, the foundry itself, and perhaps words "to the glory of the Lord," or an event in history like the coronation or the millennium. The joining of the two modes is the next operation. The two modes are aligned and clamped together and we form a cavity, which you can see here. Form a cavity where the molten bronze alloy is poured. The alloy, 77% copper and 23% tin, is heated to a temperature of 870 degrees centigrade and then poured from a ladle hoisted from a gantry. The workmen then gather round, each having a job to do to ensure the work goes smoothly. This method is correct and ideal for the job ahead, harder and more elastic than any other combination, giving a clear sound when struck and strong enough not to break with the continual striking of the clapper. After the cooling period, which may take several days, the bell is taken to a huge lathe to be tuned. Being placed on the lathe mouth up, the bell is slowly turns and the skilled operator skimming the right amount off from the inside. It could be deeper in the mouth or it could be on the outside of the mouth. Depends which way the note is because that's where it's done, down the bottom and on the top. This does not compromise the tone in any way. As you can appreciate, bells last a long time, and once installed, they are there for many, many years. During 1914, a survey was carried out giving information about the length of time that some bells have been installed in Great Britain. About 6% of the bells in the country were dated before 1600. 31% were dated between 1600 and 1800, 27% between 1800 and 1900, and 36% after 1900. It may be of some interest to you, but St Mary's bells, there are two there that were installed in approximately 1650. So there have been quite a few years there, over 300 years. The casting of the bells was a local enterprise. In the early days of bell ringing, this casting was often carried out in the churchyard, and there is still evidence of this in different parts of the country now. In recent years, with the modern transport system, all this has changed. For many years, Britain boasted many foundries. Until recent years, the country has ended up just the one. I say just the one because Whitechapel no longer cast church bells, but they cast a lot of handbells. So the only one left now is John Taylor and Company, bell founders and bell hangers in Loughborough, Leicestershire. However, there are other firms who are bell hangers and carry out installations and remedial work in the belfries. I'd just like to add that Whitechapel Bell Foundry is the oldest bell foundry in Britain, or it was at the time. Over a period of 600 years, there is firm evidence of bell founders and bell hangers operating in Salisbury. The earliest mention of this activity is in 1443, where the hanging of a bell was carried out in St Edmunds. It does not name the bell hanger, but over the centuries, the names of many bell foundries are mentioned in the records of Salisbury. For example, an early one under the ownership of Henry Pinecare, 1465. Also a Mr. John Wallace in 1495. William Purdue and Roger Purdue, possibly father and son, and a Mr. Boter in 1654. These are just a few names who were bell founders in Salisbury. The list continues near to the end of the 19th century, where in 1883, when a gentleman by the name of Thomas Blackburn arrived from East Anglia to set up the works in the Friary, operating a foundry and a bell hanging company, he carried out an amazing amount of work around Salisbury and further afield. A sample of his work can be found at Middlewoodford Church near Salisbury, where he cast a ring of 6 bells, and another, and possibly hung them as well, and another ring of 6 bells, plus a new frame, wheels installation, also in the church at South Pemberton in Somerset. He also exported on one occasion his work to New Zealand Our own St Mary's Church bells bear witness to his work. In 1899, the existing 6 bells were renovated and 2 new bells added, the treble and the second. The treble is always the first. The last bell is always called the tenor. So we have the new treble and a new second, bringing up the ring of 6 bells to 8 bells. This was in 1899. With the general decline in bell founding, the Friary works went into receivership. In 1904, Thomas Blackburn became the final bell founder to set up shop in Salisbury. Thomas Blackburn moved to Luton, where he died at the age of 73 years. But just a final mention about Thomas Blackburn. The 2 bells that he installed in Fawning Bridge in 1899 had lost their tone, and in the year 2000, the 2 bells were taken down and taken to Whitechapel Foundry in London and recast as part of the church Millennium Project. I'd just like to mention, if any of you are interested in taking up bell ringing as a hobby, it's a very rewarding hobby. It's very sociable as well. I mean, I've not done a great deal because my music always come first, but I've rung in Bristol and London and been North Wiltshire, North Hampshire, down to Essex, and it's a good bit of fun as well because after although we need you to come Sunday ringing. That's the important part. We need people to ring for Sunday services, but there's practice nights and as you progress, you ring different quarter peals and you make a lot of friends. It's really good. So if anybody's interested in coming to St Mary's, learn the bells, we practice Thursday evenings, 7:30 to 9 o'clock. That's after this coronavirus is finished. Coronavirus. Anyway, I do hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you've got something out of this talk. It's very good, and I found, even trying to find information about this talk, there's so much out there. Get on the internet. There's so much there. Anyway, thank you very much for listening.